Hi, I'm Cristina Mittermeier, and I'm a Sony Artisan of Imagery. In this video, you will learn about the importance of storyboarding. One of the great things about technology today is when you're going to be working on expedition and you're going to be in a remote area, you really have to work backwards and you have to storyboard what you're planning on doing. And so I often find myself making little drawings of what I think a story could be. Of course, before being there, it's hard to guess. But if you take the time to actually storyboard and imagine the scenarios that you might encounter, then you can work technologically backwards. And if you want an image of, a person standing in front of a sunset, and that's where your mind is taking you, then you can ask yourself, how do I get my camera to do that? And while you're still at home with an internet connection, you can actually find the menus and the instructions and Google what other photographers have done to overcome the technological challenges of photography. How do you do time lapses? How do you do night photography? How do you do HD video? All of these things you need to know before you get to the field. If you want to be an expedition photographer working on assignment for a magazine or for a conservation group, you're actually working with a budget, and that is somebody else's money. So you have to treat it with a lot of respect. And to do that, you need to do the research. And there's many, many pieces that go into actual research, from, the weather, the climate, the conditions of the places that you're going to, the permits that you're going to need, how are you going to get there, all the little bits of transportation. But also you need to research, the cultural details, the things that might help you bridge communication with a different culture, or that may actually hinder your achieving your goals. So I spend months researching before we go anywhere. And it's everything from, how heavy can my bags be to go on the airplane? Are batteries allowed? In a recent trip that we did to the Falkland Islands, on the way back, they would not allow us to ship our batteries to a different country. And so you have to know these things before you actually get to the airport. And how are you going to charge your batteries? How are you going to keep your gear clean and dry? There's a lot that goes into going on expedition. So research is key. Along with the idea of making sketches of the images that you want to get, you actually need to come up with a very detailed shot list. The more types of images you can imagine, the more chances you're going to have to actually be successful in telling your story. So before I even go on assignment, I actually sit down with a notebook and I just imagine every possible shot that I could possibly want. In my list of great images that I would like to get would be maybe an orca breaching against the moon or against the sun. I may not get it, but it has to be in my shot list, and I have to keep going back to that list and reminding myself of the types of images that are going to tell the story, to make sure that I don't overlook any opportunities. I would say that without the shot list, there's very little chance that you're going to get the story. And the list needs to include everything, from the establishing shot to shots that are just for sense of place, to the details, to action, different perspectives. You have to put it all in. When you're shooting out, you have to sometimes take your eye off the viewfinder and look around. And this happened very quickly, but all of a sudden the clouds clear and all of a sudden I could see a full moon way in the distance. And I actually had to wait and slowly wait for the whales to make their way across the frame until they came right underneath the moon, hoping for a shot. And so lifting my ISO, raising my ISO to 1,250 so that I could shoot at 1/400th of a second was key to getting a sharp image in this circumstances. Most people would think this is a nothing image, but for me, once the sun has gone down and, the sky sometimes gets these really wild colors, but then the mountains become a silhouette, for me, that's an opportunity to do something that's a little more graphic. And I take these types of pictures because I know that editors sometimes are looking for this kind of clean imagery with a lot of negative space so that they can add some text, And when you're photographing on assignment, you need to imagine how these images are going to be used. Are they going to be the lead to a story? Do they need to have some empty space somewhere for a title and some credits? You have to make all these types of decisions while you're out there in the field. How do you represent the culture with an image or with a series of images? And that's a sensitive question because there's a huge temptation to fall into the romanticized look of what we wish this culture was, you know, what it looked like 10, 15, 100 years ago. A lot of indigenous cultures around the world have really changed, and today they're very westernized. And I try with my photography to portray them as they are today, not as I wish them to be, and to do that in a dignified way. So I never want my images to, especially my images of people, to look like they belong in a museum. I want them to be really relatable. They're human beings just like we are. So I want you to think about, oh, this person is a mother or a father, or this person is going to work just like I do, to create that emotional connection. And so having all these preconceived notions of what a culture looks like can really hinder that process. I like to go to a place and look at people and think to myself, so how does this culture operate today? What do they look like? And then try to give them a dignified translation of what that is. You know, when I'm making these pictures, I'm building a three-way street. It's a conversation that's happening between myself and the subject I'm photographing, but also a conversation that happens between myself and my audiences, my viewers. And that's the bridge that I'm trying to build. In this video, you learned about the importance of storyboarding. I hope that some of the ideas and tips and lessons and mistakes that I've shared with you that I've learned along my own journey inspire you to find your own authentic voice, to figure out what you're passionate about so that you can go out there and tell your own stories. There are no small stories, and we need a lot of storytellers to make a better planet. So get your camera and get out there. Can't wait to see what your story is.